There is a story. Many eons ago, there was a great wizard by the name of Urza. So wise was he that all of the mages in the multiverse flocked to him for advice. So powerful was he that only his brother Mishra stood as a potential rival. But Mishra hated him bitterly, and soon a war began. The war spanned decades and took untold lives. Worse, it allowed evil without compare to blossom. An awful affliction spread through Mishra's armies. A black oil that changed everything in its path. Tamio knows this story. This is only the way it starts. There is more, much more. Years ago, she memorized every word. Afterward, just as Urza's metal heir had set himself upon the task of creating a world, she set herself on the task of recording it. Like the oil, she found the story had seeped into her mind, begun to change it into something she did not like, something dangerous. She'd sealed it away. What a foolish thing to have done. Hovering over the neon skies of Tawashi, she holds the scroll in hand. Oil seeps from her fingers into the parchment. Before long, it will be impossible to read any of the characters, but that is no worry for someone like her. Someone who knows these stories better than she knows her own. A Phyrexian centurion bashes in the roof of a building. People scatter from it like ants. No, not like ants whose carapaces lend them strength, who act as one in all things. People could never be so reliable when trapped by flesh and mortal fear. No. As they pour out from the building screaming, it is only the visceral that drives them, the corporal. The falsest part of their existence. There is an iron ring binding the scroll. Tamio slips it off. It plummets through the air, landing like so many other hunks of metal upon someone's unsuspecting crown. The story continues. The wizard Urza creates an heir from pure, unvarnished metal. He names him Karn. The same spark of creation that birthed him burns brightly in his breast. Karn, too, must create. As a sculptor chipping at marble, he shapes his world. When it is done, the creatures named and granted boons, the climate carefully crafted, the earth shaped and polished, he appoints his own successor, Memnarch, to oversee it. The spirits of Tawashi do not take kindly to her intrusion, nor the intrusion of her fellows. Bows bend, streams sear sinew, leaves slice like razor blades. Other stories serve to protect her. Lesser stories, stories without purpose, stories that do not extol the glories and virtues she now sees so clearly. Every history, every tale, every fable that exists is either for unity or against it. She can shed those histories that no longer matter. This one does. She must bring it to its conclusion. As her eyes scan the scroll, the characters light up, even those now consumed with black oil. Each syllable she reads boons and reverberates, shaking the skyscrapers of Tawashi. Trains careen off their crumbling tracks and drive into the ground. The earth tears itself apart, opening crevices in the city that has space only for itself. Rivers pour in, taking boats and fishers along with them. Streaks of black color the water. Phyrexian symbols etch themselves into the papers hanging on the buildings yet standing. It won't be long now. The story continues. Memnarch, the heir's heir, is a copy of a copy, a faded image of Urza himself. It longs for the power its grandfather wielded as easily as a poet wields a brush. It longs for its parents' ability to create. It longs to see more. Over years it plucks life from this plane and that, settling them all within this garden, waiting for the flowers to come. And they do, but they aren't the flowers Memnarch expects. These bloom in black oil. Their choking roots wrap around that which is alive and whole. Soon the whole garden drowns beneath the oil. The heir returns to discover his home has been torn asunder. There's more to the story. There are the people driven from their homes and trampled underfoot. their souls shucked from their bodies altered beyond any recognition. A queen rising up from among the muck to rule her people, a glorious, unending oneness, a life without war or conflict. The heir looks on at this with horror. When Tamio wrote the story, she feared all of this. She didn't understand the peace that came with being part of a greater family. This is not the way she'd tell the story now, but it is almost done. She will continue telling it. Besiiju, the tree that held this world together, bursts apart. Like wine spilling from a cask, oil runs from between the splinters, dripping into the thirsty earth. An unholy screech pierces the ears of all who will listen. Kami, torn from their home, scattered out of the district. Some find their ends at the tip of a lance. Some find them torn apart by completed fissures joined with their catches. But the end result is always the same. The Kami dissolve into a fine mist. Tendrils of smoke rise from the blackened soil, from the bridges dissolving into nothing, until the whole district is swallowed by the fog of dead Kami. There is a distant part within her that is screaming at the sight of all this. A small voice ringing in her ear, a tingling at her fingertips. But she cannot say she is afraid. This is what is right for Kamigawa. After centuries of war, have they not earned peace? Is this not simply another step in becoming whole? The scroll itself becomes oil in Tamio's hand. Dripping between her fingers, this is how the story ends, and how it has always ended, with Phyrexia's victory. Continue reading on magic.wizards.com/story or click the link in the description.